How weird do things have to get before you register and vote? Turn up the music.
We believe in equality and justice before the law for everyone, not just for some people.
Not now and not on our watch are we going to be pushed away from the decision-making table.
Black, white, brown, red, or whatever will realize that they are somebody.
When brown and black people work together, their impact can be just as great as any other segment of the American society.
You ever wonder whether America is brave enough to live up to our ideals? Then look to the generations of ordinary citizens who have proven again and again that we are worthy of that.
No one should be treated unkindly because of the color of their skin or the content of their creed.
Listen to the brave, powerful voices of today's new generation of civil rights leaders.
They're of the present, they're of the future. They understand the beauty of this wonderful country of ours with all the different shades of people we have in this country.
It's our generation's task to follow their example in this journey, to keep building an America where no matter who we are or what we look like or who we love or what we believe, we can be a part of something bigger. And now you have to help us write the next great chapter in America's story.
Senator Sanders, the black unemployment rate remains at twice the rate of white unemployment.
Yes.
A problem that has existed since the March on Washington, which, as you know, was over 50 years ago. It's long been speculated why this is still true, and you can say who is at fault. Who do you think is at fault, and why do you think this reality is still true?
Well, it's a hugely important question. What you said is exactly right. So let's look at what's going on in the American economy today. What's been going on in the last 30 or 40 years? What you've seen is the disappearance of the American middle class. You've seen people working longer hours for low wages, and almost all new income in wealth is going to the top 1%. So we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth, and more massive income and wealth inequality than any other country on earth. Now, in terms of unemployment, here's the truth. Official unemployment in this country is 5%. Real unemployment is 10%, counting those people who have given up looking for work. African-American youth unemployment in this country is 51% for high school graduates. That is a national disgrace. And what I have said, and repeat to you today, that instead of investing in jails and incarceration, I'm going to invest in education and jobs. Put the kids back to work.
So this is actually a follow-up to something that Keila was asking about college, student loans. One, I understand when you say free college,
public colleges and universities tuition free.
Nothing sounds better than that. And I think when you hear, if I was someone that was deciding whether or not I wanted to go to college or university and I heard that, I would begin to do that. But it still sounds like such a far-fetched reality. Can you just explain a little bit more how this is ever going to happen?
You know, very often that point is that this is really far-fetched. Imagine in the wealthiest country in the history of the world that has massive income and wealth inequality, that we would say that all kids in this country have the right to go to a public college and a university tuition free. And let me add to that. Maybe we should do what every other industrialized country also does and guarantee health care to all people as a right. How's that? Very far-fetched? I don't think it's far-fetched. Countries all over the world are already doing that. What countries understand that in a competitive global economy, you need the best educated workforce. We do not have the best educated workforce. So making certain that kids can get the education they need and not leave school deeply in debt is not only good for the young people, it is good for the future of this country. This is not a radical idea. You want to hear a radical idea? Here's a radical idea, that in the last 30 years, trillions of dollars have been redistributed from the middle class to the top 1/10 of 1%. That is a radical idea. Making public colleges and universities tuition-free is not a radical idea.
I'm so glad to be here. My question is, do you think an individual who legally purchased a gun should be allowed to carry it openly in a public arena, such as places of worship, schools, public places, and if elected president, would you change the Gun-Free School Zone Act by allowing staff, teachers, and administrators to carry guns in order to defend the students and themselves?
To begin with, let me just say this. I have a D- voting record from the NRA. I probably lost an election way back in 1988 because I said that I didn't think it was proper in this country that military-style assault weapons be sold. Now, the issues that you raise are often or significantly state issues. If I were the governor of a state, would I be supportive of people taking guns into houses of worship? No, I would not. That's not something that I am comfortable with, but that's a decision being made by the state. What I will tell you at the federal level is that we have got to do everything that we can to expand and improve the instant background check. Our goal must be to make sure that people who should not have guns do not have guns, and that means people have criminal backgrounds, people who are mentally unstable. We have to deal with the straw man provision right now, which allows people to legally buy guns and then sell them to criminals. And I'll tell you what else we have to do. We need a revolution in mental health in this country, because a lot of people, let us be honest and acknowledge that there are many thousands of people walking the streets of America today who are suicidal and or homicidal. They need treatment when they need treatment, not months from now. So I think that's an issue we have got to deal with. But bottom line, all of us are shocked and disgusted by the kinds of mass killings that we saw in that church and what happened to Reverend Pinckney. And we've got to do everything that we can. You know, what President Obama said some months ago, I think, captures it. What the president said is, look, this is a difficult problem. Nobody here can guarantee you that terrible things don't happen. But just because it is a hard problem does not mean to say that we should not do everything that we can to try to end these mass killings.
All right, another question for you from the audience. Sylvia, thank you very much. So we have Vidal Futch. Vidal is a student who is the first member of his family to go to college, and he says he is leaning toward you. What's your question, young man?
Senator Sanders, I am a student here in Columbia, South Carolina. I'm from a rural area, raised in a single-parent home. I attend a historically black college here in South Carolina. And my question to you is, you have a plan to make public college free. So where does historically black colleges, private historically black colleges, fall under this plan?
Great question, and congratulations on what you have accomplished.
Yes, sir.
You know, I grew up in a family where my dad came to this country from Poland without any money. He was a high school dropout. My mother graduated high school. So I was proud that they were able to send my brother and me to college, the first in our family. I believe that historically black colleges and universities play an incredibly important role in education in the African American community. And you're quite right. What I believe is that in the year 2016, when we talk about public education, we should make sure that public colleges and universities are tuition free, that everybody in this country who has the ability and the desire can get a college education. But in addition to that, we must sustain and strengthen the historically black colleges and universities who do a phenomenal job today educating a significant number of young African Americans. You have my word that we will not only sustain, we will substantially increase funding for the historically black colleges and universities. You know, they are under today a lot of financial pressure. And one of the reasons they are under financial pressure is they do the right thing. They welcome kids into those colleges that Harvard and Yale might not necessarily welcome. And some of those kids are struggling, and some of those kids may drop out. But that is the right thing to do. and those colleges deserve very strong support. You have my word, a Sanders administration would provide that support.
While we're on the topic of things that you could do in your administration that would help the African American community, speak to what remains to be a sizable gap between you and Secretary Clinton. We look at the Nevada entrance polls, as you well know, Senator. Among black voters, it was 76-22, Clinton over Sanders. Why do you believe that your message is not resonating as well there?
Well, Chris, you know, when we started in South Carolina, my message wasn't resonating with anybody. Nobody knew who I was. You know, I'm running against a candidate who is one of the best known people in the world, a candidate who ran here a very strong campaign in 2008, who knows a whole lot of people. So we started with no support. Our support has grown, and it has grown in the African American community. And what I believe, to the degree that we can get our message out, and the message is that we have a criminal justice system which is broken, that there is something very wrong when African Americans in South Carolina and around the country get nervous about walking down the street or going into their car and being stopped by a police officer. That should not be happening in America now, and we have ideas about how to deal with that. When African Americans hear my point of view, that when youth unemployment in the African American community for high school graduates is 51%, 51% unemployed or underemployed, we've got a plan to invest in jobs and education, not jails and incarceration. And we have very specific ideas about how the federal government, you know, local police departments are run by municipalities. Federal government can play a major role in ending the militarization of so many of our local police departments. They look like occupying armies. And we have also got to make police departments look like the diversity of the communities that they are serving. There's a lot to be done.
All right. Let's look to your right. You have Rod Jernigan here, and it's a question about what's happening right now with the Supreme Court. He's an attorney and the past president of the South Carolina Trial Lawyers Association.
Pleasure to meet you, Roger.
Thank you, Chris.
He said he supports Secretary Clinton. I just got to get it in there, counsel. Just so the senator knows who he's dealing with.
I'm not going to pick on you about that, Senator. Senator, welcome to South Carolina and welcome to my alma mater, the University of South Carolina.
Thank you very much.
Senator, with the passing recently of Justice Scalia, the issue of appointment of justices to the Supreme Court, in my opinion, has risen to the top of this election. We all know the Supreme Court elected a president in 2001, and look what happened.
Well, I know that. You know that. Probably some people would disagree.
I got good friends of mine that would vehemently disagree with that, but that's okay. We're all friends. Just speaking of the police cases, 2 cases yesterday regarding stopping was argued before the Supreme Court. 8 justices. It'll probably end up at 4-4. So these issues and other profound issues will be coming up. Just today, as Chris said, Senator Grassley, as you're aware, chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, advised Senator McConnell, that there would be no hearings on any presidential nominee, no vote on any presidential nominee. So we will continue for at least another year with 8 justices.
Counsel, is there a question in there?
It's coming.
It's an impressive case.
It's coming. The next president of the United States is going to appoint Justice Scalia's successor. With that in mind, past justices of the Supreme Court, not present, but past, which past justices do you admire the most and why?
Well, before I get to your question, I'm not so sure that you're right. I hear what McConnell has to say, and I hear what Chuck Grassley has to say. But let me say this. We have been dealing in the last 7 years with an unprecedented level of obstructionism against President Obama. Literally, it turns out, on the day that Obama was inaugurated, Republicans came together and said, what are we going to do? And what they concluded is we're going to obstruct, make it as difficult as he could to do anything. Now, we have had to fight through that, and I've been at the president's side time and time again, getting a stimulus bill through when we're in the midst of a horrendous recession, Affordable Care Act, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what you are seeing today in this Supreme Court situation is nothing more than the continuous and unprecedented obstructionism that President Obama has gone through. And this is on top of this birther issue, which we heard from Donald Trump and others, a racist effort to try to delegitimize the President of the United States. Can you imagine that? To say, well, he's not really the president. He wasn't born in the United States, which is nonsense. You know, it's a funny thing on that issue. My dad, as I mentioned, came from Poland. I'm running for president. Guess what? Nobody has asked for my birth certificate. Maybe it's the color of my skin. I don't know.
Senator.
To answer your question, Thurgood Marshall was a damn good Supreme Court justice.
All right. And just to clarify, you were born in the United States, right?
Just
to get it out of the way. Oh, that's a problem.
Just joking.
And
yes,
also, Brooklyn.
I was born and moved into a 3.5-room rent-controlled apartment in Brooklyn. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And Senator, Donald Trump, you're talking about those who had been big voices in the birther movement. Do you believe that Trump was motivated by racism, as you suggest the movement was about?
Look, I don't want to, I'm not a psychoanalyst. And boy, would a psychoanalyst have an interesting time with Donald Trump. But this is what I will say. And Trump was clearly not the only person involved in this. There was an effort to try to delegitimize the president. Look, you could disagree with Obama all you want. But to say that the president of the United States, who won an election fair and square, was not a legitimate president really undermines what we are as a nation. So I think what that was, now, and I'm not going to speak to Trump, but do I think that at least at some parts of that Republican base, there is race involved in that? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Another question. Clint Fleming spent 40 years in the banking industry and is now in a tax preparation company. He says he's undecided. What's your question?
All right, let me work on this guy.
The question, Senator, it appears to me that a lot of your efforts is in social programs of social issues. My question, with the mood of this United States, how are you going to convince the voters you can make a difference as it relates to social issues, free education? There are several states out there don't even provide minimum education. So the question is, how are you going to,
good,
from a banker standpoint, where is the money going to come from?
Okay. Thanks, Clint, for the question. You know, I find it really quite funny. Well, not so funny, but I find it interesting that over the last 30 years, Clint, there has been a massive transfer of wealth from the middle class and working families to the top 0.1%. Middle class has shrunk. Trillions of dollars have flowed to the top 0.1%. Any of you hear an uproar about that? What a terrible thing. Middle class shrinking, people living in poverty, top 0.1% saw a doubling of the percentage of wealth they own. No one talked. The establishment was fine. Wall Street was happy with it. Media was happy with it. Now I'm talking about ideas like saying every kid in this country who has the ability should get a tuition-free going to a public college or university if that's their choice. I'm going to pay for that through a tax on Wall Street speculation. When Wall Street collapsed because of their greed, you know what? You bailed them out. Now I think maybe it's time for Wall Street to help the middle class. When I talk about creating 13 million jobs through $1 trillion investment in rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure, and anyone here thinks that it was just Flint, Michigan, who is in trouble, you would be mistaken. Roads, bridges, water systems, wastewater plants, rail, you name it. I'm going to pay for that by ending loopholes that allows profitable multinational corporations making billions of dollars a year in profit, stashing their money in the Cayman Islands and in other tax havens. And in some cases, not paying a nickel in tax. We're going to use that money to create 13 million jobs. And by the way, we are going to target those investments to the communities in America that need them the most. All right, so to answer your question, Clint, top 0.1% in America now own as much wealth as the bottom 90%. I think that that is wrong. So here it is, folks. You can like it or not. This is my view. We are going to ask profitable multinational corporations and the rich to start paying their fair share of taxes.
Two things. The first one is, you said in Iowa, I do not represent the interests of the very wealthy. If you're president of the United States, you have to represent everybody, don't you? Do you believe that there is a risk of seeming divisive in a statement like that?
Divisive? You know,
you can use any word you want.
Well, this is what, when you have the 20 wealthiest people in this country owning more wealth than the bottom 150 million people, when you have a handful of billionaires spending hundreds of millions of dollars trying to buy elections and represent candidates and have candidates elected to represent the wealthy and the powerful. Frankly, Chris, I think we need a movement in this country, and no individual can do it alone, a political revolution which says to the billionaire class, A, your greed has gone a long way to destroy our economy, and second of all, you can't have it all. This country belongs to all of us, not a handful. I will take them on.
All right. So in terms of what you want to provide, then you get to the, well, will that be enough? Will that pay for it? As you're aware, 4 former chairs of the White House Council of Economic Advisors, all appointed by Democrats, by the way, say there's no credible economic research that supports the positive impacts that you're touting. One of them goes as far to say that it's like magic flying puppies with winning lotto tickets tied to their collars.
Let me guess. Those economists were organized by the Clinton campaign. That's a wild and crazy guess. We have, I think it's actually going to be tomorrow. Well, we have well over 100, I think it's 130 economists and healthcare experts who will say exactly the same. Look, Chris, you have enough experience to know you can go to an economist, this one will say this. We got economists who say, hey, what this country needs are more tax breaks for billionaires, et cetera, et cetera. Economists have different points of view. But we have documented how we pay for what. Now, you get to the issue of healthcare. Let me say a word on healthcare, because that's where a lot of the criticism comes from. All right, here's the story, folks. Story is that Germany, the United Kingdom, France, Sweden, Denmark, Holland, Canada, every major country on earth guarantees health care to all people. And guess what? Not only do they guarantee health care to all of their people, we who have 29 million unemployed and many of you under 29 million uninsured and many of you underinsured with large co-payments and deductibles, many of you, all of us, paying the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, we end up spending, Chris, almost 3 times per capita more than the British do, 50% more than the French, far more than the Canadians. So when people say to me, well, Bernie, you know, we can't do what every other major country does, run a cost-effective healthcare system that guarantees healthcare to all people, stop the huge rip-offs that come from the pharmaceutical industry, such that 1 out of 5 Americans can't even fill their prescriptions. Frankly, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. We spend far more than any other major country. We get much less. Now, what the real issue here is, do we have the guts to take on the power of the insurance companies? Do we have the guts to take on the pharmaceutical industry, who has 1,300 paid lobbyists in Washington, D.C., and these guys spend zillions of dollars in campaign contributions? I believe that when the American people stand up and they say, you know what, health care is a right of all people, not a privilege, yeah, I believe we can do that.
Another question for you, Senator. Meet Tracy Jackson.
Sorry?
Tracy Jackson, to your right. Okay. She runs a nonprofit organization, says she is voting for Secretary Clinton, but has a question for you. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Senator Sanders. I was recently asked to teach a leadership course at my alma mater. If you were going to be a guest speaker in my class, what 2 leadership truths would you share with my undergraduate students?
Well, first of all, thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
I believe that you cannot be a good leader unless you go into your heart of hearts and passionately believe in what you are leading. You know, I see kids, I go around the country and I see kids coming up to me and they say, I would like to be a senator. I would like to be a governor. Not good enough. Why do you want to be a senator? Why do you want to be a governor? What is your passion? What motivates you? Because if you don't have that passion, if you don't really believe in something, you are not ever going to be a good leader. So my answer would be to the kids is to say, think hard. What do you believe? What do you believe? What kind of community, what kind of country do you want us to be? And are you prepared to fight for that? Are you prepared to take on very powerful special interests in order to achieve the vision that you had? That would be my message. Thank you.
All right, let's take a seat. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to have more with Senator Sanders. At the CNN Democratic Town Hall, we're going to continue from Columbia, South Carolina, right after this. Please, have some water. It's free. All right, we are back talking with Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders here on the campus of the University of South Carolina School of Law in Columbia. The Democratic primary just 4 days away. Don't be nervous. I have a question for you. The Clinton campaign recently released a web ad hitting you for what they say is being a single-issue candidate. I want to play the ad and give you a chance to respond. Take a look and a listen.
No bank is too big to fail. No executive too powerful to jail.
You got to break up these huge financial institutions. Attacks on Wall Street speculation. The disastrous and illegal behavior on Wall Street. The wealthiest people, the top 1.5%. The CEOs of Wall Street companies.
Pretty self-explanatory. What's your response? Are you too single-issue focused?
Actually, I didn't think it was a great ad myself.
You didn't like it? Was it a picture thing or was it a message thing?
Yeah, actually, my hair was even worse.
Is that what it was?
At least, Hillary, at least let me comb my hair there occasionally. But, you know, single issue. Anybody here has gone to my rallies. They are the longest, most boring discussions in the history of politics. I talk for an hour, hour and a half. Of course I talk about Wall Street, and I'll tell you something, if I may, why Secretary Clinton is a little bit nervous, because people are asking, how does it happen, or why does her super PAC receive millions and millions of dollars from Wall Street? What does it mean that you give speeches to a financial institution like Goldman Sachs and you got a couple of $100,000 to throw for giving that speech? So maybe they're a little bit nervous about the Wall Street issue. But when I talk, what do I talk about? I talk about a disappearing middle class. I talk about raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. I talk about rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. I talk about making public colleges and universities tuition-free. I talk about a health care program that works for all of our people. I talk about a tax system that is fair and equitable. I talk about making certain that every woman in this country has the right to control her own body. And that we fight for pay equity for women workers. I talk about ending a disastrous trade policy. You want to talk about a difference between Secretary Clinton and me? She supported NAFTA. She supported permanent normal trade relations with China. I have led the opposition to virtually all of these disastrous trade agreements, which have cost us millions of dollars. What I am fighting for right now is a political revolution in which government starts working for working people and for the middle class, and that a revolution which is prepared to take on the billionaire class today which has enormous power. So the idea that I'm just talking about Wall Street is enormously important, by the way.
Senator,
but it's not the only issue.
tell people what the revolution looks like, by the way, because this is a big part of the motivation for what you think will enable change on issues that are highly intractable right now.
Absolutely correct. All right. What does it look like? Last election, November 2014, Republicans won a landslide victory all over the country. 63% of the American people didn't vote. 80% of young people didn't vote. Republicans will always win elections when people are so disillusioned with the political process that they don't vote. And then you take on top of that the voter suppression that Republican governors are mounting all over this country. So, Chris, here's the answer. Here is the answer. Political revolution means the revitalization of American democracy. It means, my view is, we should have one of the highest voting turnouts in the world, not one of the lowest. It means we make it easier for people to get involved in politics, not harder. Because this is why, Chris. When young people and working class people and low income people who often do not participate in the political process, when they get involved, when they stand up and they say, you know what, I'm a working mom. I want to make sure that I have quality, affordable child care. We will have quality, affordable child care.
All right,
and when people talk about the need to take on the fossil fuel industry so we deal with the crisis of climate change, we can do that too. Nothing real will happen. I don't go around telling people, vote for me, I'm going to solve all your problems. Never said that. I say vote for me, and together, when millions of us stand up, we can make real change in this country.
So let's hear from one of the voters who wants to be part of the process. Please meet Thomas Kilpatrick. He's a lawyer here in Columbia, says he is undecided.
First name is?
Thomas.
Thomas, hi.
Senator Sanders, welcome to Columbia.
Thank you.
Senator Sanders, both tonight and throughout the campaign, you've talked a lot about the millionaire and billionaire class and what you think they're doing to the country. I was wondering if you could name a millionaire or billionaire who you admire or who you think has done good things for the country, and why?
Well, there are great billionaires. I mean, the people who are serious. I don't agree with everything that Bill Gates has done, but this is a guy who has made massive investments in education and healthcare around the world. He's not just sitting on his money. He's trying to make the world a better place. He's not alone. There are other people who have done that. So this is not some kind of personal vendetta against, people who happen to have a lot of money. But what ends up happening in this country, Thomas, is you have people like the Koch brothers, okay? Second wealthiest family in this country. They and a few of their billionaire friends are going to spend $900 million on this campaign in order to elect candidates who represent the rich and the powerful. I think that stinks. I think that's undermining American democracy, and I think that's why we have to overturn this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. So this is not personal. It's not personal. It is simply saying that you have a handful of people who have incredible wealth and incredible power. They have economic power. They have political power. I think that is not what the United States of America is supposed to be about.
Let's bring in Angela Hulamard-Smith. She's an attorney who works in commercial real estate. She says she is leaning toward you, Senator.
Keep leaning. All right.
Senator Sanders, I believe it's fair to say that you're a career politician. You've been in government for over 30 years. Can you unequivocally assure your supporters that when you are elected President of the United States, you will not be beholden to any persons or special interest groups?
Angela, thanks so much for that question.
You're welcome.
Look, when we talk about why so many people are giving up on the political process, why voter turnout is so low, people understand that we have a political system which is corrupt and it's rigged, okay? Now, I know every politician, Democrat, Republican, whatever, who receives millions of dollars in campaign contributions, they say, oh, these contributions are not going to impact me. Then the question we ask is, why are these special interests making these contributions? Maybe they're dummies and they're just throwing their money around. I don't think so, okay? So here's what I am enormously proud of. In this campaign, not only do I not have a super PAC, We don't have a super PAC. We don't raise money from corporate America or Wall Street or billionaires. You know what we have done, Angela? We have received 4 million individual contributions from well over 1 million people. You know what the average contribution is? $27. So, Angela, I guess I am indebted to the people who have contributed $27. Those are the people I will stand for and fight for. Thank you very much.
On your left, we have Barbara Cunningham. She's a retired private sector health insurance worker. Barbara Cunningham. She says she is leaning towards supporting you on Saturday, but she has a question. Barbara.
Hi, Senator Sanders. I've been a lifelong Democrat, and I've always supported the Clintons, but I love what you say. I've waited my whole life for a truly liberal politician, Democratic politician with a platform like yours, including affordable health care for all. My concern is with Medicare for all. There's hundreds of thousands of middle-class jobs in the health insurance industry all across this country that could be adversely affected. Do you have a transition plan?
We sure do.
That would keep these jobs from being put in jeopardy if you can implement Medicare for all?
Good. Thank you for the question. I am an advocate for a Medicare for all program. But I think what we need is, rather than people billing people, spending enormous amounts of time driving doctors crazy and insurance companies, can I prescribe this drug or not? We are going to need, when we provide insurance to 29 million people who today don't have it, when we deal with the problems of high deductibles and copayments and more people get the health care that they want and they need, we're going to have all kinds of jobs opened up in health care. And the first people in line should be those people who are currently in the private health insurance industry. Our goal is to make sure that when we spend a dollar, it's not on administration and bureaucracy, it is on the provision of health care to the American people. And people like you have a whole lot of experience in that area, can play a vital role in making us and allowing us to do that.
Dave Sprung is on your right. He has a question. Dave Sprung. He's got a question that's highly related to the discussion you're having right now. He's a student at Furman University, says he's undecided, leaning a little bit towards Secretary Clinton, has a question for you.
Senator Sanders, according to the CDC, cigarette smoking contributes to approximately 480,000 deaths each year in the United States. This is an important issue for me, as I lost my father, a lifetime smoker, to lung cancer in 2014. My question is, if you were to be elected president, can you think of any specific reforms that you would put in place to combat this epidemic? For example, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, for example, you could consider raising the minimum legal purchasing age of tobacco products from 18 to 21.
I don't know that I'd go in that direction. But by the way, my dad smoked 2 or 3 packs a day. I remember like it was yesterday, waking up in the morning and coughing and coughing and coughing. He died young, and cigarettes certainly contributed to that. And we have lost God knows how many people in this country who are addicted to tobacco. What I would do, and what I think we have got to do, is take on, when I talk about the greed of corporate America, when we talk about the pharmaceutical industry that makes prescription drugs unaffordable, maybe at the top of that list actually is the tobacco industry. Do you know what they are doing, Dave? You know what they're doing right now around the world? They are trying to peddle cigarettes to kids all over the world. They go into countries and they come up with these colorful packages, and they have these pretty girls literally giving out, like heroin dealers, literally giving out cigarettes to kids to get them hooked on nicotine. And as you indicate, this is a product that is killing people and costing our health system billions and billions of dollars. I will do everything that I can, and we're not doing a good enough job. We are making some progress. But we could do better. For example, if you are a low-income person today who's addicted to cigarettes and you want to get off, can you find in most states easy access to the kinds of treatment that you need to get you off of that addiction? The answer is not really. And one of the interesting things that are happening, by the way, in this country, you know who's doing more and more smoking? It's the low-income people. It's the working-class people who don't necessarily have as much education as others. So I think we have a major health crisis with regard to cigarettes and tobacco. We've got to take on the tobacco industry and be very clear. You cannot continue to kill the children of America. And that will, we can
right.
do that in a number of ways. Maybe we raise cigarette taxes is one way to do it, make it unaffordable for kids to buy that product. But it is something I feel very passionate about. I want to, if I could, Chris, just one story.
Go ahead. When
this gets even to a trade agreement, let's give you an example how crazy these trade agreements are. Philip Morris, one of the large tobacco companies in the world, sued the small little country of Uruguay on a trade issue. And you know why they sued Uruguay? Because their president was an oncologist, felt very strongly about this issue, worked very hard for tobacco prevention. And Philip Morris said, "You're denying our company future profits. We want the freedom to kill the children of Uruguay, and you're taking away our freedom." That's how crazy some of these trade agreements are, which guarantee profits above human health. But that's a whole other story. But taking on the tobacco industry is something I would enjoy doing very, very much.